Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part 3 of our lecture. As we move into meetings and visits, some of this information is going to apply more appropriately to teachers. However, there are a lot of elements as we move through this module that you can generalize to other professions. Even in your watch and work later, as you're watching a parent-teacher conference, there are a lot of elements that can be used regardless of being a teacher if you're working with families. You just kind of have to pay attention for them. So as we move through this next part of lecture, keep that in mind. Even though some of it might apply to being in childcare settings or being teachers, there are components that can apply regardless as long as you're working with families, okay? Let's go ahead and jump in. So initial meetings for programs. You want to make sure that you start with your location. You're going to think through, I want to make sure there's no distractions. It's a quiet setting. I have an opportunity to really communicate. If I'm going to have children present, I want to make sure they have something to do. Are they engaged? Is there a toy available? Is there something that's going to keep them kind of busy so I can have a conversation with their caregivers that's meaningful? And always remembering that if you're speaking a different language, or if you're even concerned that the family might not completely understand everything in the language you're delivering material in, that you're offering a translator. They have that availability to fully understand the information you're providing. Now, if you've picked the location, you're going to think about the space. And when I think about space, it's not actually, location is where you're going. Space is how you set up the room. Okay, we want to make sure that you don't sit up higher than the family, so you don't have a massive chair and they're sitting down low. We also want to make sure that there's not a large table in between families and children. We want to make sure, families and you. We want to make sure that it feels like it's a conversation, like you're just kind of talking to a friend. You sit next to them. If there is a table, it's a smaller table. You're seated at the same height. There's not a large flower arrangement blocking your view in between the two of you. It's a very easy space to have a conversation and feel comfortable. The chairs are comfortable. It feels like you could talk to them for a while. Now, if you are at a site, so if this is something like if you're at a childcare center, you want to make sure that there's a friendly waiting room area. And we talked about this a little bit earlier when we talked about school-family relationships and making sure that families feel welcome. But you want to make sure there's a space for them to wait and feel comfortable. Like they should feel welcome there. It has comfortable seating. After you pick out your location, you prepared your space to make sure that it can facilitate a welcome and warm conversation. You're going to prepare. You're going to make sure you have all of the printouts that you need necessary to convey all the important information. And you're also going to, if you're at a site or you're going to be working with these families over time and the children are going to need more information, you want to have photos of the staff, of the room, especially if you're looking at being in a school setting of any kind, making them understand what it looks like. What does it feel like? Okay. After your initial meeting, there's other things you're going to need to do. You want to do getting to know them during this meeting. So, and this goes both ways, though. It starts with you. You want to make sure that they know that you're a person that's a friendly person, an approachable person. So you can share a little bit about yourself. You would share your hobbies, whether or not you have kids, and also your qualifications. So I am a person, I'm approachable, but I'm also qualified to do what I'm doing. And from there, you can have the family ask families questions, engage about their culture, their language, and their values. This should not be an interview format. This shouldn't be, I have a list of questions to get through, and I'm going to drill them at you really quickly. It's a conversation. We want them to feel like we are open to communication all the time. An initial meeting set the precedent for that. If we deliver it like it's an interview, then it feels like we have an agenda that we need to get through, and that's how we always operate. If we make it a conversation, it opens the door to always having a conversation. From there, we're going to summarize at the end of the meeting so parents have a good comprehensive understanding of what's happening, where it's going to happen next. A lot of times you cover a lot of information, and remembering that families have a lot of emotions when they're going into circumstances where they're working with professionals. So if you don't do that summary, they can miss parts and they can forget parts. So we summarize to make sure they have a clear understanding, because a lot can go into one meeting, right? And then from there, we're going to make sure we offer them multiple opportunities to have additional questions. And again, this is from a place of practicality if we want them to have all the information, but also from a place of conveying that we care and we want them to feel involved and engaged. And so if there's something that's bothering them, whether it be in the first meeting or 10 weeks down the road, we are open to hearing it. We want to hear all those questions right from day one. Now, if you are in a program that is such a childcare center or a school, a big part of summarizing and ending the meeting would be providing a tour. And again, that just gets at letting them feel what it's like to be in that environment, having them have a very clear picture of what the setting is. As you close, you're always going to make sure you have an appreciation for time and for their conversation. Thank you for meeting with me. Thank you for sharing so much with me, right? Families, again, there's a lot of emotions that go into it. And when they share with you, that's a matter of vulnerability there. So being appreciative of that. And also that conveys later on that the more you share with me, I really like that. I am very appreciative of that. So we can convey that to families on day one, that we appreciate them sharing with us. They are going to be more likely to share with us down the road because they have an understanding that it's something that we value. All right. And the last step for your initial meeting with for programs with parents and families and caregivers is to reflect. Now, there's 3 steps to reflecting. That's because there's a lot that goes into it. The first one is that sometimes families don't always come across in a warm manner. Remember, we're going back to having some perspective taking. They're processing a lot of information. This is a new situation for them most times, regardless of how you're serving them. So we're going to presume positivity. Even if there's something that maybe was said that was a little like, oh, that wasn't maybe the kindest thing to hear, we're going to assume that they're coming from a place of just wanting to learn. Always presuming that positivity. We're also going to practice our empathy and perspective taking, going to understanding that this is a new circumstance for them. They are just trying to learn. We want to empathize with whatever they might be going through. Working with families, whichever field you go into, there are going to be opportunities for a lot of strong emotions and a lot of situations that are heightened. And so we want to make sure we employ our empathy and understanding about what they might be going through. And the last thing we always want to do in our reflection is check for bias. After you meet with a family, things might show up for you. And unless you're actually reflecting for the bias, they're going to continue to perpetuate your actions. So we want to make sure that we reflect, okay, did I engage the way I wanted to engage? Was there any piece about that family that maybe I had an implicit bias around that impacted my listening and my learning and my ability to serve them in the future? And if there is something there, I'm going to understand it and then actively work to change it. And unfortunately, the reality is we are all humans. And so we all have implicit bias. This will show up eventually. And if it doesn't for you, that means you're not reflecting. The reality is it's there. And unfortunately, we have to just really work to mitigate the effects of it and really challenge ourselves to get rid of it. All right, let's talk a little bit about home visits and how they play a part. So, and how we even go about doing a home visit. So, to prepare for a home visit, the first thing we're going to do is plan. We want to know who's going to be there, who's in charge of making the decisions when we're there, how we're going to expect participation. And part of that is explaining to them, hey, I'm going to come out. This is the purpose of me coming out. This is what's going to happen when I'm out. I also, when I'm there, I would love for you to share about these things. Again, there's a lot of high emotions. This is a new circumstance for families. Even if you've done several home visits yourself, you've done several home visits. The family has not, right? This is their first experience. So you want to make sure they understand the expectation for participation so you can get a lot of participation. They have time to process it because it is an overwhelming process, regardless of why you're doing a home visit. Give them time with the questions. I'm going to, I'd love to talk to you about their strengths. I would love to know about your concerns. I just want you to know this is what we're coming out to find out. I will see you then. We're also going to learn about the culture before we go. Who makes the decisions? Do you take on and off your shoes when you come in? What kind of greetings does a family engage in? Let's make sure we're being respectful when we go out. Is there a certain language that there's being spoken in the house? Do I need to make sure I have a translator with me? A lot of times too, families will try and offer food and drinks as a way of saying thank you, or culturally, that's part of what happens. If somebody comes to their house, they offer food and drinks. So knowing what your policy is for the program that you work for, of whether or not you're allowed to accept them. In general, it's the most respectful thing to accept them because it's their way of showing appreciation, but the policy might be different from where you work. We also want to know any additional facts that might impact that home visit. We're going to make sure that we individualize the home visit. We're not going out with the same structure, the same interview every single time. Again, remember, we're not making this like a routine check-in. We want to make sure it's comfortable and it feels like a conversation. So we want to know, what does the family already know? Have they had younger children already experience this home visit? Have they had other people come do home visits before? Because if they had, we're not going to share the basic information. We're going to jump into other information. We want to acknowledge their knowledge and move forward. That sounded funny, but you know what I mean. We also want to have flexible scheduling, understanding that families work, right? Going back to how we talked about parent-teacher conferences earlier in the semester and how they're scheduled when families are working, so it's hard for them to show up. Have flexible scheduling. Understand that sometimes it might need to be earlier in the morning. It might need to be later in the afternoon. It might need to be moved around nap time if you're working with younger children. And prepare for the location. Is there going to be parking? Is it going to be safe for you to go there by yourself? All of these things are really important when we're preparing for a home visit. All right, so when you get to the home visit, some of these might seem kind of silly, but they're important to know. These are the steps you're going to take. You're going to knock on the door. They're going to answer it. You're going to introduce yourself. I'm Heidi. I am here with Folsom Lake College. Then I'm not going to just walk in. I'll wait to be invited in. And then once I'm in, I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to get all the stuff out I need to have a successful home visit, whether that be a writing pad or a toy that I brought for the child. And then the toy I brought, I can introduce to the child and leave behind. And it needs to be an age appropriate play material that they could make. It's not something that's like a fancy toy. And I put an asterisk next to this because we never want to make families feel like what they have at home is not good enough. So this is kind of one that is a little gray area. Sometimes you might bring a little something for a child to warm up to you. It could be like a sock puppet or something with a paper bag that parents could make at home. And sometimes maybe not. Maybe you honor what the family has there and show them what they can do with what they have. It really depends on why you're going in. You're going to make a nice casual comment about the environment and like you're visiting a friend, so kind of putting them at ease that this is just going to be a conversation. It sets the tone. You're going to re-explain the purpose for your visit, and then you're going to ask open-ended questions. But again, we're keeping it conversational, right? This is not an interview. We want to make sure they have opportunities to share without feeling like they're being drilled or like they're, applying for something. It's a conversation where you feel comfortable. You're going to make sure you express appreciation for their time, allowing them into your home, and provide them a reminder of what the next interaction or home visit is going to be. So this is what's coming next. Once you leave the home visit, there are some steps you need to do. The first thing you're going to do is follow up. So make sure you, again, because we know families are processing so much information, provide some written form of contact to them, whether that be an email or a text message or another phone call. Hey, thank you for letting me come out today. I really enjoyed meeting you. This is what is coming next. You're going to review your notes because you're going to be provided with so much information. You're going to have to sit and think about, what do I know? What else do I need to know? And from that, you're reflecting, okay, what do I need to know? What am I going to do next? What is the best thing for this family? What is the best thing for this child? You take all that reflection and you plan your next steps. Okay, this is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to get this other professional involved. I'm going to contact this other agency. I'm going to set up a tour at the school site, depending on how you're working with families. Okay. All right, there's a lot of value in having home visits. The first one is that it's the space where the child feels most comfortable, especially if you're working to welcome a child into a new school, a new facility, a new childcare center. Meeting with them at home is going to put them at ease, and you're going to be able to see who they truly are. Welcoming a child into a new setting, you're not going to be able to see who they are. It also, most times, is the most comfortable place for families, and it makes it so they don't have to travel, right? It makes it easier on them. So we're trying to put everybody at ease. It's not always the case. Some families don't want to open their doors. They feel more protective, more private. But in general, it's a place where people are going to be most comfortable, especially the children. It's where you can really get the most observable knowledge. Again, this is where children are going to act truly like themselves, and parents are most likely to engage in a natural interaction with their children. So you're going to be able to get the most observable knowledge. You're also going to be able to get a lot of shared information. So understanding of, if parents are at ease, if caregivers are at ease, family members are at ease, they're more likely to share lots of information with you around what's happening and what their needs are. And the last one is it's logical and it's a reasonable solution to outcomes. So you want to make sure that you're meeting them there. They're not having to come to you. And then when you have ideas of what you could do to help families, you can see how it would work out in the actual environment. If I, as a teacher, say, oh, I think you should be reading 10 books every week with your child, but I don't have an understanding that in your house you only have 2 books, that recommendation is not going to be applied or followed through. But if I go to a home visit and I see what they have, then I can help make a recommendation that's possible for you. Or if I feel like, hey, it would be really great if your older son would help you start making dinner, but I don't know what's accessible to you. I need to be able to go out and see what actually is available so I can make logical and reasonable solutions and expectations for you as a family that you are going to be more likely to follow through with. And I only get that if I'm in the home getting the full picture. Okay? All right, with that, we're going to take our last break. We'll come back and do communication and difficult conversations. And